This is New Day Northwest. Now, here's Margaret Larson.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to New Day Northwest. We are just 10 days away from the Super Bowl and working ourselves into a frenzy, so we invited our good friend and celebrity chef Sharon Hackman to create some beastly football party snacks. Also coming up, a live performance from Daniel Kirkpatrick and the Bayonettes with their vintage 60s rock sound. We'll meet a talented director from Bellingham whose new film stars an Academy Award-winning actress and is a featured highlight in Seattle's Women in Cinema Festival. Plus, the doctor is in the house to tell us how to avoid getting sick during this flu season or how to get better faster if the flu bug bites. But starting us off, I don't know about you, but about this time of year, I daydream about vacation. Whether you're planning a trip right now or deciding where you'd like to go, you might be consulting a trusty travel guide. For nearly 60 years, Frommer Guidebooks have been helping travelers navigate their way around the world. And recently, they've relaunched their books with 30 new guides in 2 formats. Here to share some of their must-see destinations for 2014, please welcome the founder of Frommer's Guidebooks, Arthur Frommer, and his daughter, Pauline. Welcome. Have a seat. Hi, Pauline. How you doing? Gosh, I've used your guides forever. I can't believe I'm actually getting to meet you. This is very exciting. The history of these books really fascinate me. How did you get started with your first guidebook?
I wrote my first guidebook when I was in the Army. I was drafted out of law school and sent at the time of the Korean War and sent to Europe. To my great good fortune, I went traveling every weekend and wrote a little book called The GI's Guide to Traveling in Europe for my fellow GIs who seemed too scared to leave the barracks when we had a weekend off.
Apparently not you.
Not me. When I returned to New York City from the Army and began practicing law, I spent my first vacation going back to Europe, and in 30 days I went running from one city to the next, and I wrote a book called Europe on $5 a day. That's
about my budget. Thank you. I'm glad you did that.
It was easily possible at that time.
I am so glad you did, because you have, I don't know if you know this, but you have truly opened the world up to so many people, because when we have that information, we're so much less likely to be afraid to go explore.
That's right. That's one of the purposes of the book, certainly.
It's a beautiful thing. Pauline, did you grow up just traveling all over the place?
Oh, yes. I started traveling when I was 4 months old. And this was in the days without Pampers, so it was not easy for my poor parents.
Yes.
But I spent about a third of my childhood on the road.
I'm jealous. How do you think travel changes a young person's life?
Well, there just was a study, and it showed that children who go on educational trips earn 25% more when they grow up. They have much more of a likelihood of going to college or at graduating high school. I think there's nothing as educational as travel.
That's such a good point. Now, the guidebooks are relaunched, and you have new formats, and you've changed a few things. Tell me what you've done.
We've shortened them. I have recently felt that guidebooks were becoming too voluminous, that they inundated the traveler with too many recommendations. So we went to authors and we said, instead of recommending 100 hotels in Paris, recommend 30. 10 expensive, 10 moderate, 10 inexpensive.
I think that's a good idea.
And set forth your preferences. Name only the places that you most fervently recommend.
Because we understand the web exists.
Right.
So we wanted us to be expertly curated information, an alternative to people who didn't want to spend hours upon hours figuring out what was the best. Our authors go everywhere. They don't recommend a lot of places they see. They only recommend the most authentic, the places that only could exist in that destination.
Well, you make such a good point, because you don't want to do research when you're trying to buy a book to avoid the research. You want to have those pared down. So let's talk a little bit about the top destinations, some of your favorite destinations for 2014. Excuse me. And one of them is the Big Island in Hawaii. Why is that such a favorite?
There's a reason for that. The volcano on the Big Island is erupting. Now, you can't guarantee that it is erupting, but it is one of the great sights of the world to go there and to see the lava actually pouring into the ocean, creating hundreds and hundreds of additional new acres of land for the Hawaiian Islands.
something.
So it's an exciting trip to take.
Yeah, that certainly would be educational, the science
yeah.
and the fun of it. Of course, I wouldn't see any of that from my seat on the beach. But another one you've chosen is the Riviera, but not the one in Europe, the one in
not the
Mexico.
one.
Tell me about
Well,
that.
this is the Riviera Nayarit. It's 192 miles of pristine white sand beaches outside Puerto Vallarta. It's about to be discovered. It isn't yet. But all of these big hotel chains have built glamorous resorts there, so you can have that 3-star experience or 5-star experience, but you can also go to perfectly preserved colonial towns, hippie surfing villages. You can see whales in the distance, turtles nesting, and you won't do it with the crowds that you encounter, say, on the Mayan Riviera.
That sounds awesome. Glad to know about that. You recommend Bali.
Oh, I love
And
Bali.
anybody who's ever been, and I never have.
You have
I'm
never
so
been
sorry.
there?
No, I've been to
Go.
Indonesia, but I haven't been to Bali. I was working, so it wasn't that kind of a trip. But everybody I know who's been just comes back raving.
They become raving because the people are the most gracious, warm-hearted people in all the world. They actually invite you to attend their weddings, to attend their funerals, which are joyous occasions there. You go to Bali, you see incredible sights, and you live so cheaply because the Indonesian rupiah, the unit of currency, is now selling at the rate of 11,000 to the dollar. So Bali, which was always a cheap destination, has now become cheaper still. It's one of the few places in the world where you can almost live on $5 a day
Wow.
still.
It's 30% cheaper this year than it was last year.
If I ever needed a push, I don't now. I'll just explain it to my husband by we're actually saving money. We're going to go to Bali in order to save money. You recommend Berlin.
Berlin was where I was stationed initially in the Army before the wall went up. It is celebrating this year the 25th anniversary of the breaking down of the wall. There will be all sorts of special commemorations. It's one of the most exciting cities on earth. It has 2 of everything. Because it was divided, it has 2 opera houses.
Good
It has
point.
more than the usual number of museums and the like. It's a wonderful, it's an exciting countercultural city with a great many hipsters in residence.
Great
and
nightlife, and actually
Great
the
food.
least expensive of the hotels of the major European capitals.
Yeah, that's
Are in
interesting.
Berlin.
Yeah, are in Berlin.
And such tremendous history to learn about there. Rio de Janeiro, you recommend as well.
Well, they're gearing up for both the World Cup games this summer and the Summer Olympics, which means that they've finally fixed their infrastructure. Rio has always been a great destination, but now you're not going to sit mired in traffic jams. They have more lanes on the highways. They have alternative forms of transportation. They have better hotels. They just have more in place for the tourist. And then you're going to spend your time partying on Copacabana Beach or going up
How
and
terrible.
seeing
That'd be
the
awful.
Corcovado statue.
What's the cost factor?
The cost is iffy. The problem with Rio and Brazil in general is it charges us the same visa fee that we charge them, which is what, $165
yes,
or something
that
like
much.
that. So that ups the cost of going there. But once you're there, it's not that pricey. It's just that darn visa fee. They're trying to get us to get rid of ours here in the United States.
You know, there's some logic to that.
Yeah.
I can't argue with that. Are there any places that either of you would like to go that you've never been?
I've always wanted to go to Tibet, and I waited too long because Tibet has more or less been closed out now by the Chinese government to standard tourists. But someday I would like to go to Tibet. I've been almost everywhere, as you can imagine.
Yes.
I've reached a fairly advanced age, as you can see. I've traveled all my life like a madman, going every week to a different continent, constantly writing about travel, publishing travel books. We have published as many as 300 titles a year in our former series. And now, of course, we have our new Easy Guides, these 256-page books, which are lighter than any tablet to carry. They can be
Good
put into
point.
your pocket. They can be put into
And
a
they don't
shirt.
run out of power either.
That's right. They won't just
That's
go
true.
off
We have
suddenly while you're...
e-books, though, too. We
You
have
do have
e-books, too.
e-books.
Yeah.
Is there any place you'd like to visit that you haven't gone?
I'm embarrassed to say it, but I've never been down under. I've never been to Australia or New Zealand, and I'm dying to go.
See, there you go. We all have some place. I'm so very happy to meet you, and I also just want to say you've led such a great existence, and you're such a role model. You have lived every moment of your life, and I really admire that. Thank you for opening the world to the rest of us.
Oh,
well, thank you so much for having us on your
here.
program.
Thank you, Pauline. You can meet Arthur and Pauline. They'll be at Third Place Books in Ravenna tonight at 7 o'clock. We'll post details on our website after the show. Go and meet them. Later on today, Daniel Kirkpatrick and the Bayonets perform a single off their new album. But first, celebrity chef Sharon Hackman. He's right over there. He's whipping up some beastly snacks perfect for the Super Bowl party. He's next.